Thank you very much, Agnen. And thank you for introducing this amazing panel so we can just kickstart without much introduction because we don't have much time and these people have so many interesting things to say about the topic. Today, I think we're on to a very interesting morning on the second day of ESG Adria conference. So, I mean, as we all know here, tourism is the backbone of economic activity of many countries in the Mediterranean. The smaller the country, the more important is, or the lower possibility for diversified economic activity. In Montenegro, we have 30% of GDP coming from tourism. Unofficially, officially, it's around 25%. Additionally, during the COVID pandemics, we've seen how important it is for this industry to adapt, to be resilient. And it's exactly where sustainability kicks in to make sure that we make our destinations resilient and sustainable. So today we want to talk exactly about that with this, with our panelists today, who are, I would say, they form a spectrum of opinions and activations that will make, for sure, our destination more sustainable and resilient. So Mike, let me start with you, if I may. You've been involved in strategic development from both the public and private sector perspectives. And in developing countries, we often see a situation where investors seek flexibility from the state and government for their development projects to ensure their investment is viable and profitable. At the same time, through these projects, they help develop a destination. This was very much the case for Montenegro, transforming it from an basically unknown place into, or hardly known place, into a global hotspot. So we've seen this happen with this project where we are sitting right now. We've seen it with Loštica Bay, and we are currently in Montenegro in the midst of a very hot discussion for another project in the most southern town of our country. So on the one side, we have an investor willing to invest money somewhere where it's not maybe 100% secure, so to say, in terms of investment, and needs for the country to be adaptable. And the other side, we have a country that, or this government whose role is to make sure that, that the rules are respected, that the environment, the heritage, and everything else. So my question to you here is, how do we make sure that these two do not collide, but actually work together for a better?
Yes, thank you. I think Montenegro, and to some extent the region, is now in a position to be able to plot their way forward in terms of tourism development. I've seen other areas in the Mediterranean that there are many lessons to be learnt with respect to development of tourism resorts, hotels, etc. And I would say that there needs to be a balance between the investors' interests and the government or the mayor or the municipality's development goals. And I think at the heart of where Montenegro is at the moment is that it needs to have very clear development goals, strategic planning goals, to be able to guide and to some extent dictate how the country will develop in terms of tourism and what exactly it's looking for as a vision for tourism in Montenegro and the wider area. So strategic planning is vital, and it's vital for the nation, but it's also vital that strategic planning is localized as well to be able to control development. I think clear, transparent, legal and regulatory frameworks so that there is trust on both sides is an important aspect going forward for investors. I think the adherence to the private-public partnership laws, because this is effectively a medium long-term relationship that needs to benefit both sides is a key aspect in that, and one which sometimes is overlooked to some extent is the need for extensive stakeholder and social safeguards and discussions that need to be had with effectively the local population, because the impacts of a resort or a hotel, etc., has wider implications. And we have seen effectively in Europe and the Mediterranean some hotspots where we're starting to see the local populations demonstrating against tourism. And so it's very easy.
And you can see it in this country as well these days.
And we have seen it, and it's very easy to lose sight of what the vision for the country and for the local area is. So there are some fundamental aspects that are required. And to some extent, you know, your choice on the planning and the architectural layouts and master plans is equally a very important aspect, because there are organizations that really adhere to sustainability in their designs, and some not so much. So it's a balance, really.
And this is a very important point you mentioned about engaging stakeholders from local communities. I think it's very good that we have a representative of Luštica Bay here, because this S component has always been present with your actions in general and in developing Luštica Bay. I mean, I remember myself a small cafe on top of where the golf range now is. It was a very simple one with a small bar, small tables, where people from Radovići, because I was living in Radovići, which is a small village next to Luštica Bay. I was living there then, and we would go over there every day and mingle. There would be expats from Luštica Bay, but also locals from Radovići. But I mean, this was like 10 years ago, maybe, and a bit less. And then ever since, Luštica grew immensely in terms of development as such, but also in terms of the number of community members. Have you managed to preserve this involvement of local community, and if so, how? And what has been the biggest challenge for you to do so?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think this is one of the most important topics if you want to develop not just the tourism, but us as Orascom, or us as part of the Orascom destinations. Let's say Orascom itself, we are 35 years already started building towns. So it's not as particular a tourism destination per se, but actually building towns. So we are in multiple continents. So myself looking after Andermatt in Switzerland and Luštica. And if you look at our mission, which we are doing usually in all of the different countries or the destinations, is we're building fully integrated towns where people can live, play, work with purpose and passion. And I think the purpose and passion is for us very important. So it's not gated communities, it's actually we're building towns with accessibility from local public villages around, like Radovići here, like from Tivat, like from all over in Montenegro, but also with the international appeal to really have this prime Adriatic destination feeling. Because nature, it's very, very important for us. I think we are one of the best spots, surely, in Montenegro. Our master plan as well is 90% remains nature. So this is a USP for us to really a sustainable development. We are having a fully integrated all year round destination aspect. So it's not just in summer or it's not just in winter. We actually want to have people living in the destination itself. And to be able to do so, I think the social aspect is very important. As has been mentioned, it's not coming, developing and entertaining. It's actually a sustainable development. That's why 10 years ago we started. We are only 10% in our development. We do it in a sustainable way. It means engagement with the municipality of Tivat, engagement with the colleagues from Radovići. What are the demands in terms of safety, security, medical center development, accessibility to do that. So it should be life enhancing, not just for newcomers or tourism, but actually for people living in the destination. That's our main aspect.
For sure. And what has been the challenge? Was there something where you said, I wish we had this in a different way, so it wasn't so challenging.
I think one of the challenges is surely that you have, when you develop a new town, you have got many, many good ideas. And you have got lots of people which has got good ideas to do so. I think one of the challenges is actually having the master plan executed as the master plan was approved on the promise. So the more successful or the larger actually a development gets, the more influence you will have from outside to help you develop. And I think this is one of the challenges to say, look, what was originally agreed, and this is the promise. So this is kind of the guidance and the governance of a development itself. I think this is one of the challenges. To really stick to the promise which has been given years ago to develop and make this place really one of the unique places here in Montenegro.
Yeah, which it is. Snežana, you're here today both as Executive Director of Sunuba Montenegro, but also Executive Board Member of National Tourism Board. And we've seen here we've heard a lot of good advice and about also requests from, an organization that should lead us in our tourism strategy. So I would really love to know what National Tourism Board has been doing in terms of developing a strategy for sustainable development and sustainable destination of Montenegro as good basis for investments for everything that's supposed to bring us forward as a destination.
Thank you, Katarina. The name of this panel is very well, and the name of the panel is happening in a critical moment. And it seems to me that Montenegro is now in a critical moment that is irreversible. What we do now will not be able to be reversed again. We always need to take care about the size of our small country and the limited resources we have. So first of all, we need to decide, all the policymakers and also investors that are already here in Montenegro, what do we want to protect? What is the priority for us? What is important for us? Do we want to protect our natural resources? Do we want to protect our way of living? Do we want to protect our heritage? This is the first thing we should do. So National Tourism Organization is doing a great job on promoting our destination, our cultural heritage, and also our sustainability projects. And as a part, the Montenegro Ministry of Economical Development and Tourism became the member of the GSTC Council. And also National Tourism Organization made educational tool of our members to help SMEs and small businesses how to implement sustainability standards. Also, last year we implemented a Montenegro quality standard that defines to the standard book, to the toolkit, we define all the sustainability goals some companies should develop in order to get a standard, in order to get a quality mark. This is the first step. We are now planning to develop a new quality mark that is just responsibility mark, and we are working on it. What we need and what we are developing is the toolkit. We need to help tourist sector how to regain sustainability. For the big investors, it's much easier because they can pool resources and know-how much easier than the small SMEs. And also the private big investment can be a role model for the SMEs. So I think the dialogue is very, very important. As a National Tourism Organization, by the law, we are not a destination manager, and we fight to become something, to become a destination manager. We cannot go out of the law. But we need to have a destination manager that will always, like Michael said, very important, to always keep the vision developed. Because now the decision makers are dispersed. And I'm afraid that we are losing the vision. So we need to be very, very goal-oriented and to have a clear strategy, what are we going to do? Because what we decide now will not be reversible.
For sure. And do we have a vision? Is there something coming from, state institutions where you see?
Well, strategic documents show the vision that we want to be a sustainable development and sustainable country. As you already said, 30% of our GDP is coming from tourism sector, meaning the tourism sector is a critical sector and is generating all other sectors around. Exactly. Agriculture, construction, travel. So if we succeed in making a tourism sector, a sustainability sector, and also sustainable sector that will be a role model, it will help also to reach the other sectors too.
Just on,
Yes.
just on the vision aspect and my experience working globally, is that it needs extremely strong leadership.
Yeah.
You have to have leadership to be able to implement your vision. And I think Montenegro does actually have that now. And sometimes it won't run smoothly, but leadership is really required as the only way forward to be able to implement what the government, what the country wants. And I've seen many fall by the wayside in terms of trying to lead, you know, places in Amman, in Jordan, in Malta to some extent, in Cyprus. An ad hoc approach is not a good approach.
Yeah.
And it raises a lot of issues and a lot of problems for the country going forward. So, but I feel it's actually, Montenegro is in a position right now to make the right choices for the country.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, and I would add to that that I think it's very important that there is a, you said, dialogue on level of institutions, but also between the institutions and big projects like Lustica Bay, like Porto, Montenegro, and many other projects that are not of that scale, but significant in terms of their impact on community, because being part of bigger groups, they can transfer knowledge to us that we might need. And if we have like sea-level commitment, like that's the case, obviously, in Lustica Bay, it's, you need vision you know, and leadership in terms of a country, but also in terms of ESG. Sea-level involvement is the one thing we cannot go without if we want to do something of substantial impact. Mylin, Horvat is an undeniable reference when it comes to tourism development, and you help shape the way tourism sector is perceived and pave the way to its development. And what experiences from Adria region and in general can you share with us when it comes to making destinations more resilient? What have we learned from COVID pandemics? What has changed or has not changed and should?
Well, I think there are two aspects. I mean, obviously, everybody says after COVID or post-COVID area is basically, there's a tourism revenge, and I think it's good that the region, in particular countries like Montenegro, Albania, has been even not just rebounding back, but even, I would say, flourishing in terms of tourism. This is one aspect. The second aspect is about what is the client expectations and guest journey, what we call it, in a sense that now it's about experience. And I think this is very important to understand, even when it comes to from the very early stage of master planning, because it tends to some extent, especially development of tourism, has been perceived a little bit of who is first to act. I think it should be concerted at the same time, because if we have just projects driven by urbanistic kind of fancy structures, that might be interesting in short term, but it's not sustainable. And vice versa, just economic would not play the game. So I think when it comes to ESG, I think it's a perfect example where tourism sector has all this E, S, and G very much manifested with external impacts in terms of when it comes to employment. I think we agree that it's one of the most labor-intensive sector. And I think I agree with Professor Goldie yesterday that this is one of the non-tradable skills or non-tradable markets, which is not easily to be substituted or to be, you know, taken out in other countries. So I think we have to use this ADN, DNA that the whole countries have. Secondly is about, I think, social impact. I think this is very important, not just because labor should be incorporated in development, but it's more important in the very early stage to make them understand, the communities, that tourism should not be just per se a sector which brings benefits, financial benefits, but should be first and foremost for the residents to be actually better accommodated in their aspirations, in their, let's say, dreams, whatever. So I think Still, we have some lessons learned. I think in our case, we are working very strongly with, in partnership with the Croatian office of Horvat. And I mean, looking at the countries, of course, sustainability is at the core of all strategies. I mean, we did recently the new strategy for Albania 2024-2030. And I think it's important that we basically not just talk the talk, but we have to put some kind of framework in place. And I agree with Mike. First, we need to be clear about what is regulatory framework. I mean, we talk about large-scale investments, mixed-use resorts. One of the discussions we have in Albania now recently is, should we, in a way, balance between what is the component of residential villas, commercial, and hospitality units? Because I think this is key. If you want to keep year-round tourism development activities, you should basically marry both. What is the residential part, and then what is the tourism part. Secondly is about, I think, profitability. I mean, obviously, when we talk about sustainability, we always say people and planet should be beyond and above all profits. But that's not easy, because on one side, you need to have developers to be having backable projects, which means unless they make profit, they will not come there. I agree, I think you can confirm that. But secondly, at the same time, you need to be cautious that that might be a bit of perversive kind of model if you say that profit should be the driving force. So now it's a matter of willingness, and I think I agree with my colleague of the National Tourism Board in Montenegro that you need to, in a way, be a bit of balancing and looking a bit long perspective development of the country. And I think the other thing that we should mention as well is it's important to have tourism enabling infrastructure. I think this is something that Albania has done in a better place, in my view, because I mean, you need to be sure that what kind of development you're putting in place should be, in a way, accommodating your energy needs, your infrastructure needs, transportation, connectivity. And I think connectivity, in case of Albania, is a perfect success story example where we had Tirana International Airport 2019, 3.3 million passengers, and 2024 we had 10.5 million passengers. But now we have the worry that the demand is there. Are we ready with the supply side? So in a sense, it has to be balanced. And I think the only, out of this ESG, now we come to the G side, governance structure, governance setup is very important. Because first, you need to communicate the importance of these projects very early stage, not when they are realized. Secondly, you need to be accommodating, as I said, all kind of facilities, utilities, infrastructure projects, public projects I'm saying, or infrastructure investment beforehand. And thirdly is about communicating what is the benefit of residents, because we might have the issues of over-tourism, and I think we, in some certain time of the year, in some certain locations, we do have that. I mean, it's impossible to stop it, but of course, if we stretch the seasonality, not just 6 months, but maybe 12 months, ideally, obviously you have people that are coming to these countries not just in the summertime. So I mean, it has to be a concerted effort. There's no magic bullet, but again, I think this is one of the beauty of the art of making tourism, because you have to marry both all these components in once. And I mean, we are going the right direction, but still there are a lot of lessons to be learned from other countries. We should not do the same, let's say, I think we should not do the same mistakes that Spain has done in terms of over-construction or over-tourism in some places. But at the same time, having protection as a barrier to development, I think, is not a solution. Because one of the discussion is, should we develop protected areas? I think, in a sense, if we don't have people living there, anyhow, they might be protected, but there's no activity happening. So we should not forget that, in a sense, tourism should be a means of living, even in rural areas, even in remotest areas. So protection of environment is important, but if it is somehow managed with a little bit of activities which make them engaged in those areas, I think we have achieved both. We keep people capillarity in the country, so we don't conglomerate everybody in 1, 2, or 3 locations. But at the same time, we do preserve natural beauties that these countries have by having a little bit of more managed activities within those areas.
Keep that thought, because your next question is going to be exactly about that. And it's a very important introduction that you made to it. Miloše, hi.
Hello.
So we are always talking about how whoever really started thinking about how to kick off sustainability, embedding it into business, was very smart to think that first we have to have financial market participants on board, so the ones who give the money further, so to say. And you are really, banking, especially banking industry, is at the forefront of this shift. So could you tell us what concrete actions UCB is doing to support this shift? And what is at disposal for someone, for an entrepreneur from Montenegro, if he or she wants to either have a sustainable business from scratch or make an existing business more sustainable? What is there at disposal in terms of support?
Thank you, Katarina. At Universal Capital Bank, we see sustainability not as a responsibility, but actually more as our contribution to the society. So that's why we implemented our ESG, very comprehensive ESG strategy for 2025 to 2028. Which is grounded on 4 pillars: responsible governance, innovative products, transparency, and community support. Next, what we are doing at the moment is that we are making a very dedicated sustainability board that will ensure that our ESG strategy is well implemented in all our business processes, and it supports the community as the fourth pillar of our strategy. So in terms of financial products, we introduced a wide range of products recently for sustainable growth. So we offer the EcoDom loans with very, very favorable interest rates for energy efficient housing. Then from green vehicle for green mobility, microloans for underserved groups of the society, and loans for sustainable tourism, as we all agree here that tourism is the main sector in the country that contributes the most in the GDP of the country. So we are trying.
And for women in business, I would know because I'm looking into it, right? So you have a special loan line for female women business, right? For female entrepreneurship.
Yes,
which is also part of ESG. So I just want to expand the portfolio.
Special line of our product for women in business that we support very much. Actually, as a bank, to be a little bit different than the traditional banks everywhere. We are making tailor-made products for our clients. So we do not have a product catalog that you come and then you try to fit in. We develop products for each of our customers, and especially for the women and sustainable growth in the country.
In terms of ESG, we call that inclusivity, which is a very important part of S. So, very good. Okay. Well, many interesting things said in the first round, and I don't know where to start first, but maybe while you keep that thought, Mylin, we talk about Albania a bit.
Yep.
Albania is in a very interesting position right now with investments. Some would say Albania is maybe in the position where Montenegro was 2 decades ago, more or less, in a similar one. So we have Marina, Sindurec, and Vlore, sorry if I'm pronouncing that the wrong way, and planned projects in Sazan Island. Sorry about you go ahead and correct me.
I will talk about
Please do. And Zvernec, very interesting in any way. And what can you learn from Montenegro to do or not to do when it comes to developing these destinations?
I want to be diplomatically correct. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that one thing that I noticed driving from Tirana to here is that, to be frank, I'm not happy with the road. So that's something that
we'll come to that. That's my favorite
Sorry for being
topic.
too blunt on that, but I mean, that's something which actually will, and I think if you want to create, as you have already, high-end luxury destinations, this is the first, let's say, impressions of high-end individuals coming. I mean, I think that would be something which should be improved, and I think there are already investments happening, which is a good sign. I think we have done that one in Albania a bit better and earlier, but we don't have this kind of high-end mixed-use resorts that you have already set up in a very good way. So in terms of projects you were mentioning, yes, there are there are a couple of projects, but the biggest ones are the one that I think Mr. Alabar will talk a bit later, I guess, but he is developing in close to Tirana in Durrës area, which is a huge investment. At the same time, we have some positive developments on the island, which is actually the only island in Albania. It's called Sazan Island, in front of Vlora, which now Vlora will have a second international airport. So I think we have, coming to the question, I think we are doing tourism enabling infrastructure, I think we have done in a proper way because I think since 2005 and on, we have been investing hardly and a lot in the road infrastructure. And then what has been a game changer, I think, is air connectivity. As I said, now we have Wizz Air and Ryanair, which of course, I think it's not good to have high reliance of low cost. But if you want to bring tourists, the first phase, I think that's the only option. And then, of course, you have to diversify between low cost and legacy carriers. But I'm saying, in terms of demand-driven initiatives or investments, we have done properly in Albania. Now, with the projects in Sazan Island, it's a bit of early stage. We have interest from Mr. Kushner, F13 Partners. I think there are some private equity and international institutional investors. So Albania, I think, even a few weeks ago, we have ITB in Berlin, was the host country. So in terms of creating the necessary environment, but not just on the PR level, I'm just talking about the real infrastructure-wise. Secondly, what we are doing is in terms of the regulations. So a new strategy, we have proposed a proper regulation for large mixed-use resorts so that it has a bit of balance between, as I said, hospitality units and residential units. And thirdly, it's about, I think, incentives in place. So we have VAT tax 6%, of course, but we have zero infrastructure tax of big investments. We have zero tax or profit tax for 10 years. So I think the government has understand that if you really want to kick off really strongly in this market, you have to put it in the top agenda of the government. So I think this is something that it's happening. Of course, we might be the last in the region, which means we have the benefits of learning from the past countries' mistakes. I mean, I don't want to be criticizing here because I don't know exactly what mistakes have been happening in Montenegro, but I'm just saying that we are lucky enough to understand that what is the new dynamics of tourism? What are the new trends in tourism? What is the, as I said, client, guest, journey, expectations, and experience? So I think if we want to be really in the forefront of these developments, we need to be understanding that Albania still is a small market. But on the other hand, I think what we need to do better is to combine, because in the end of the day, tourism is about content and narrative, as always. So the content is there. We have mountains, lakes, rivers, two seas. But the thing is, we still need to promote it in a better way. And I think what is crucial now coming to ESG is we need to set up this DMO system, Destination Management Organizations, because that is going to be the platform where actually all the concerns of local communities, of the private sector, of government, central level, local level, will be actually coming to a place where you need to measure both. What is the cost and benefit analysis of having these investments?
Correct.
And last thing, I don't forget, we are very much focusing on hinterland development of tourism, especially with agritourism kind of structures. Albania has been really successful because what we see is a pattern of tourists going around the country, not just on the coastal areas. And I think this is the beauty of it, because this is the only way how we should develop SMEs in those areas, how we should develop DMCs, destination management companies. So in a sense, tourism shouldn't be always about huge, large-scale investments. I think, on the contrary, if you want to keep it sustainable, you have to engage actually small to medium-scale investments, because that is something that brings jobs, that brings a bit of more cohesion, and of course, it creates long-term resilience when it comes to tourism shocks.
I want to go back to transportation just quickly. I mean, you've been in Tivat for a couple of days now, and you've seen, let's say, the problematics of it. So what would you suggest or advise to local municipality of Tivat? What is the first thing to do in order to improve this? Because this is a big issue now all year. It used to be just in the summer season. Now it's an all-year issue.
Well, so I've walked along the development and down to the old town, and it's April. So I haven't been here in July and August.
Yes, exactly.
So seasonal demand is a huge issue now for many countries in the Western Balkans and particularly in the Mediterranean. And many people talk about the expansion of their airports in the UK, in Spain, in Europe. They're expanding airports, modernizing and expanding terminal buildings, adding terminal buildings to their existing airports. The cruise industry has picked up significantly over the last 10 years or so. So you have two modes of transport that are pumping, excuse the term, tourists
Interesting term to use in this region at the moment.
Into specific destinations. But those specific destinations, and some of them are local, are unable to cope with the influx. And you know, when you get a couple of cruise liners either in the bay or docked up, and suddenly those doors open and 5,000 and 6,000 people pour out and inundate an area for the next 6 hours, and then they pour back out, and then the next two come in. It's extremely challenging. So I would say that the municipalities need to have a medium, long-term transport plan that can cope. But the subtlety here, and it's a little long-term, it's got to be a land use transport plan that is integrated. It cannot be a transport plan that is simply reactive to the demand, because you're way behind the curve in that way. It has to be a medium, long-term, integrated land use plan. So land use over here is this, how are we going to provide it? And the fundamental behind that is to ensure that the backbone is very public transport orientated and not sucking up so much to car traffic and so on. So public transport and green public transport, and I'm very encouraged to see the electric, the Maltese electric boats parked in the marina. So that's a good start. So yeah, so I would say you've got to plan ahead. And just very quickly, it's not only transport.
Of course.
It's energy, it's waste, it's sewerage, it's water.
We are, I get signals that we have to be very quick, so I want to just go for another question for Rafael. So besides transportation, where else would you need the state to step up and do a better job, so to say, so that Luštica development, but all the other projects can get more easily toward a more sustainable destination?
Look, if you look at Luštica Bay itself, it's a fully integrated town, first of all, which we want to do. So the prime Adriatic destination means maybe also in transportation that actually self-sufficient within its perimeter, starting with pharmacies, starting with medical parts, so the security, the medical part. And then I think it's also the eco boats, fantastic. And this is something that we've been with the mayor of Tivat actually discussing together. So we're sponsoring the eco boat from Luštica Bay because of getting some pressure out of the system which is today. So employee housing development, so it's very important. So if the question about what kind of additional support we would need is, it's kind of simple. It's simplicity, kind of a system which is in place which eliminates duration of waiting, duration of getting further approvals. So it's more about if there's a master plan, if there is a principal agreement done on the development, very good engagement, and then actually getting the system into place to actually run. Because there's many different destinations and developments ongoing. And we, as Luštica, again, it's really started 10 years ago. We are in the execution mode currently. So this is enable actually the destination to flourish and develop itself. This is something which is very much demanded from the local municipality, from Tivat itself, from the government. And I think we're going to do that in a jointly way. It's very important, so it's not one or the other. So it's really developing a town, sustainable, in itself closed. It will help really the further developments.
Thank you very much. I think we need to wrap it up. Thank you all very much for a very interesting discussion. And we're on to a very interesting one as well, I believe. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.